Hello and welcome to the Hockey Inside Out Show. I'm Stu Cowan of the Gazette, and I'm joined by my regular partners again this week, former Canadiens teammates and 1986 Stanley Cup champions, Chris Nilan and Rick Green. Tuesday night's game in San Jose looked like a must-win for the Canadiens, and Joel Armia came through with the winning goal, shorthanded, 4-3 win over the Sharks. Knuckles, was it a must-win? And I know you must have been happy to see Armia score. You've been a fan of his this season.
Yeah, I always liked this kid, even when he was going through his tough times. I knew there was more there with him. And you know, some coaches just had a hard time getting that out of him. You know, it's frustrating to watch. Some nights he'd do some things, you'd be like, why doesn't he do that all the time? And I think this coach, sending him down to the minors, got his attention and said, hey, get your shit together here and let's get going. And he really bought in. Him and Evans together killing penalties is an incredible season they've had. And just, you know, these are the type of guys, in the end, when you're in the playoffs, those are the type of guys you win with. You need guys like that on your team. Great penalty killer, and you put him out there 5-on-5, he is not going to hurt you, might even add to the offense. So I love Armia. Listen, I know his contract's up. People get rid of him. That's the easy thing to do. The tough thing to do would be to sign him and say, hey, can we keep him here long enough for us to make a playoff run? I don't think that's possible, but yeah, he's been a really pleasant surprise. I love Joel Armia.
Rick, was that a must-win game Tuesday, or is it too early to say that?
Well, I think that, you know, moving forward, every game's a must game, and when they have been performing the way they have as of late and finding ways to lose instead of finding ways to win, they had to get their focus back and their determination and their fire back, if you will. And without, you know, raining on their parade, at San Jose, the last place team in the league, you know, and they found a way to, with Armia, you know, playing great, full credit to him. But, you know, the whole team needs to, you know, find a way to get their game back and get on a little bit of roll because the time is ticking.
Rick, I know you weren't a huge Armia fan last year. I think you were willing to drive him to Laval if he needed a ride. Where have you seen the biggest improvement in his game?
Just his consistency. You know, he's competing much harder. He's getting involved. He seems to have a real good understanding the type of game that he needs to play, and he's a big part of this hockey club right now. And I got to give him full marks for, you know, the way he is playing and what he's bringing to the team, because he seems that he really is motivated and has a desire to make the difference each game, which, you know, I struggled with watching him last year when he would play, then he wouldn't show up, then his shifts and all that stuff. But he's kind of put that behind him. Contract year. It's amazing how that will motivate a lot of guys. I know a few guys from the past always had their best year of their career. And, you know, but hats off to him. He's finding a way to get things done and, you know, see where it goes for his future.
So, Knuckles, if you were Jeff Gorton, you'd be trying to re-sign Armia?
Yeah, again, it depends. You got to look at, listen, what's their legitimate time frame of making the playoffs? Do they think they're going to make it next year? If they do, you got to consider a guy like that. If that's the way they're going. If they're not sure about it, then it'd be tough to sign him. But, you know, the year he's having, he's a free agent. Someone's going to sign him, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, GMs all around the league always take on these reclamation projects, if you will. Come on, how many times did Alex Galchenyuk get signed, right?
Yep.
And here's a guy who's turned his career around. He's never been a problem child as far as off the ice and stuff like that. So, you know, he's not a reclamation project that way. So I can see a lot of teams want to put him in their lineup, especially playoff time, right? You want a guy like that in the playoffs. A guy who can kill penalties, can eat up those quality 5-on-5 minutes, not playing in his own end of the rink, playing in the other end. So, yeah, depends where they stand. They think next year they're going to make the playoffs. Maybe they consider it. If not, I know probably not popular. A lot of people like, don't sign him, get rid of him. Enough. All these fucking idiots who think they know everything.
Well, if the
Use my
Canadiens,
language.
the Canadiens got a first-round pick for Ben Sherratt, and you wonder. I mean, we saw Rick in the playoffs when the Canadiens went on that run to the Stanley Cup final. Armia was one of their key contributors, so you wonder if the price might be too high for Kent Hughes to say no at the trade deadline for him, no matter where they are in the standings.
Well, I think, the conversations, I'm going to guess the conversations are being had as far as, what his feelings are. Does he want to, be a part of the organization moving forward, and at what price? I know the cap is going up and they have to justify where they spend their money. And, he's just definitely deserving of getting a new contract. It's term and amounts that are going to be the big question mark moving forward to see if he's going to be part of the team, next year.
So, Knuckles, if you had to pick one, Jake Evans or Yoel Armia, that's a tough decision if you had to sign only one of them.
Well, I would say Evans because center ice, center iceman, good penalty killer. You don't want to lose that center iceman. He's going to take a bump and pay. Armia, he's at 3.4. Like, is he going to take a cut and pay, or does he want the same type of money? And that's the thing, He's going to go somewhere else. Someone could give him that money. Could give him $4 million a year. You don't know, or 3.5, and just say, here's a 4-year deal. Take you to 35. See you later. Boom.
He's playing the way now that Marc Bergevin expected him to play, right, when he gave him that contract.
Exactly.
Now that, so as Rick, you said, is it a case of the contract year that's motivated him? Will he not be?
He's very consistent now compared to before. He was, it was always he'd have a game or two, he looked great, and then a couple games he looked brutal, and then next thing, he kind of got in these funks that, he wasn't bringing it, and now there's more consistency in his game, which is awesome.
How much do you think that has to do, Knuckles, with just having a consistent line mate in Jake Evans? And before
I think it helps. There's familiarity there. Certainly with Evans, the two of them on the PK are just awesome together. They read off each other well. They communicate well. Man, that's a coach's dream, having two guys like that in the PK. So, it's always better when like I'm sure Greeny, even with having that partner, he loved being a partner with Chelios, right? But
chemistry, oil and water.
When I played with Bob and Cabo all the time, you knew you were with them. You knew each other. You knew how to communicate. You knew, what you were supposed to be doing as a line on the ice, and you fed off each other, and it works great. So, yeah, it does help.
You mentioned earlier, Knuckles, about Marty doing a good job with Armia. He got his 100th career win in San Jose. Rick, what's impressed you about the way St. Louis handled this team this season?
Well, I think that he's much more confident in what he's trying to do and the message he's trying to deliver and trying to be fair. And I think that it's a tough job with today's athletes. Whether or not you push them to the point where they get upset and they don't want to play, then take their ice time away, and that doesn't necessarily work all the time either. So I think he's handled a lot of adversity. He continues to deal with the key guys getting hurt. So there's a lot of things that come into play, and it's really challenging to see if he can adapt and try and keep the guys focused. And let's not forget, it's been a hell of a grind as far as scheduling goes, them as well as a lot of other teams. And you have to really tap into your experience on, okay, what I need to do to get these guys mentally and physically ready to play each game and each shift. And, hopefully they're going to turn the corner a little bit and find their way back to their A game that they were doing so well for that stretch where they were winning, so many games.
Yeah, Jeff Gorton was on one of the Sick podcasts recently, and he was asked about Marty St. Louis, and he said the one thing he's still learning is managing the bench. And both of you guys were coaches after you finished as players. Knuckles, I know you're a head coach in the minor. How difficult is that? Like, you've been on the bench as a player, And all of a sudden you're behind the bench and everything's like, how big of an adjustment was that, just getting used to
It wasn't
running a
bad.
game?
Listen, I knew the matchups I wanted, and I could get them. And it's obviously easy to get them at home than on the road. But there were times on the road I would want to match lines, my checking guys against the offensive lines. But then there were games, on the road, I didn't want to disrupt the flow of the game. I wanted guys jumping over the boards, and I would address it and say, listen, you're going to be out there sometimes against top line. Get the job done. Don't look to me, oh, coach, bring me, put out the checking line, fucking do the job. You're playing professional hockey. You got to get the job done. So there were times, I'd stick with matchups, and other times I just started rolling my lines and getting guys into the game. So, yeah. Listen, I think it's important. So I've heard him say a couple times, Marty, that the game was kind of tough trying to get matchups. I think he said it after the Tampa game with John Cooper, matter of fact. And I was like, what was so tough about it? You're at home, you get the last change. So I don't know why he struggles like that or if he does, but according to him,
Cooper's sort of a mastermind, right? And with all the, that's why I've maintained all along. I thought it would have helped to have Marty have another coach with more NHL experience behind the bench to help him out with that stuff, though. Rick, you used to have Stefan Robida's job, assistant coach in charge of the defense. What have you liked about what he's been able to do, and especially since the injury to Gooley, which was a huge one?
Yeah, well, I think it's so important in their mindset from early on is they're young kids, they're trying to develop, they're trying to learn from mistakes, make sure they're not punished, providing that the effort is there. And, you throw these guys out in, situations that it's hopefully going to help them progress in a positive way. And I know it's always tough, as a coach when you see some guys or pairings that are struggling, and you don't want to take that confidence away from them by sitting them a little bit. They lose a little bit of their edge, and next thing you know, they continue to struggle more. But unlike before, mistakes are accepted. It's part of the game. They're corrected. They're thrown back out in situations to improve on, and they're being really fair with the guys, providing that the effort is there and they show up and they really want to make the difference when they get on the ice.
Yeah, that's another thing that Gordon said in that podcast. Said one of the things he likes the way Marty and Robida have handled Lane Hudson, just letting him go play and do his thing and not worry about making mistakes. And they're sort of trying to teach him, look at the scoreboard. There's certain points in the game where you probably shouldn't rush as much as, depending how much time's left, what the score is. Win over San Jose, as you mentioned, almost a must win. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games. After the win over San Jose, they're 5 points out of a wild card playoff spot. But they're only 3 points ahead of their pace where they were last season. Knuckles, moving forward, is this a wild card team at the end of the day, or is it going to be a draft lottery team again?
I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Listen, they had a great month there. Things were going great. We were expecting them to win hockey games, like I said, and then they got back into then they looked tired. They had Gooley gets hurt. They're not there yet, and it's great to see. Like I said, they're only 3 points above the pace from last year. That's great. That the parity in the league, the way it is, it's crazy how tight things are. But the type of play they have to put on the ice every night up until the end of the season, it's going to be extremely difficult. And I just don't see them as a playoff team right now. And they've done some great things. Don't get me wrong, they have. But that consistency, that building a winner, that showing up every night and winning hockey games, that you might be behind in, or you're protecting a 1-goal lead in, and you win those games and you build that confidence as a group, that goes a long way. And are they there yet? They showed signs of it at times, and then other times they certainly look like the team from the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I know a few weeks ago on the podcast we were sort of talking about if they were going to make the playoffs. And before the season, I didn't think they would. I don't think any of us did.
I don't.
You still thought they wouldn't. Rick, you and I both sort of thought they would the way when we're on that stretch. But I also said injuries could play a key role, and I think those 2 injuries might have been enough to kill their playoff hopes. What do you think, Rick?
Well, yeah, no question. You take some guys out of your lineup. It's tough to win when you have everybody in there. But one real positive is that stretch that they did have so much success. They were beating a lot of the top teams in the league, and you got to give them credit for doing that in the way that they played. Yes, they've kind of tailed off as far as their performance goes, and the results go with that. They're not getting necessarily the key saves each and every game that they were getting before, which I think is critical to the wins and the losses. But, the spread is so tight between that last spot to get in the playoffs and not get in it. And it's going to be a test of their character to see, do they really, really want to go that extra mile, if you will, to get in there. And, hopefully the injury bug will not hamper too much of their progress as they get down the final stretch. It's going to be tough. A lot of good teams ahead of them, but they beat some of the best teams in the league, so I got to give them marks for that.
Yeah, those standings change every day. It's fun to watch. Anyway, that's it for this week's Hockey Inside Out show. We will be back with a new show next week. In the meantime, please make sure you like and subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel. Go to MontrealGazette.com/newsletters to sign up for the Hockey Inside Out newsletter. And of course, you can go to HockeyInsideOut.com every day where you'll get all the latest Canadiens news. Also, please leave your comments on the show in the comments section below. We always like to know what you think about it. Anyway, you can look for our 3 bonus episodes coming up over the next few days. Until then, we'll see you soon.